Capitalism is good because capitalism is freedom. Socialism is bad because socialism is tyranny. Not it's an aspect of tyranny. Socialism itself is tyranny. The statement of socialism is that your labor is owed to the society. The notion of socialism is that you do not own your own freedom. You do not own your own time. You do not own your own labor. You do not own your own work. You do not own the products of your own work. The basic notion of capitalism is you own all of those things, and now you have to engage in free exchange with someone else who does not owe you anything. If you want to thrive, if you want to succeed, you are going to have to make something somebody else wants. People think capitalism is selfishness. No, socialism is selfishness. The notion that I have to somehow supply you the money so you can sit in your basement and paint with watercolors. Socialism, the idea that I'm supposed to fulfill all your dreams by paying you for something I don't want and have no need for.
Interesting point here. This notion of rights and freedom. What Marx is actually doing here is in a way pointing out that bourgeois constitutionality is entirely concerned with market relations. And that definitions of freedom and rights pertain there. But bourgeois constitutionality has almost nothing to say about what goes on inside of production. What goes on inside of a factory. And when states start to interfere with what goes on inside of the factory by passing legislation like OSHA, capitalists get outraged. It is a violation of the rights of private property. You don't want anybody prying around inside of the production process. And bourgeois constitutionality has nothing to say about what goes on inside the production process. Nothing to say about it whatsoever. Yes, you can try and take some of these market relations and bring them back into and apply them to this world of production, but that's very hard to do. And this, I think, is a fascinating kind of point. Because a lot of politics right now is precisely about freedom and rights. Perfectly consistent with the bourgeois vision of the world. And Marx is kind of saying, yeah, you're going to have a great time there playing around with Bentham and notions of freedom and rights and all this kind of stuff and private property and all the rest of it. I mean, this is the neoliberal ethic run wild. It's the liberal theory run wild. Liberal constitutionality. And whenever a revolutionary movement comes in, like happened in Portugal in the 1970s, and they tried to set up a constitution which actually tried to legislate how production was to be organized, the bourgeoisie went utterly crazy. That is something you cannot and must not do. And what is interesting to me is to think how much of politics over the last 30 years has actually forgotten that. How much of politics, by going into abstract notions of human rights and freedom and rights and all this kind of stuff, is actually talking about something which is outside of what is going on in the actual production process itself. Because what Marx is saying is you can't find the secret of how capital is produced by simply looking at the market. You can see that there is a commodity there called labor power, which clearly has the capacity to produce more value than it itself has. But in order to crack the secret of profit making and the production of capital, you have to go inside the production process. You have to go inside the labor process and look at what is happening inside the factory. Look at what's happening in the labor process on the production line.